at the end of the day, with all the stuff we learned about selling techniques and all this, all comes back to, do I want to spend time with you? Do I trust what's coming out of your mouth? Well, now you get to do that at scale. That's the difference. I get to do that at scale, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people, that over time, if you're consistent, the key is don't start and stop. I'm starting on my LinkedIn. I post once a week and then I stop for 4. Whatever you do, do it consistently. Things will start to happen that you can't even dream of.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. Today, I am so excited to bring to you a guest who is not only a founder who has grown and scaled himself, but is someone who helps founders and executives position themselves to scale and grow more than they currently are. Alan, will you please introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what do you do?
Hi, Todd. Alan McLaren. I'm out of the Great White North, as they say, Canada, just outside Toronto. What I do is I actually help CEOs with their personal brand, making it very intentional for their approach to help them grow their business and actually what we call humanize their business in a big way. So that's essentially what I do.
Love it. Okay, that can be unpackaged in a lot of ways. Tell us what you mean. What do you mean by what you just said? I mean, helping them evangelize themselves helps them. In what way does what you do help them grow?
Well, first of all, think about this. Do people trust businesses today? Rhetorical question. The answer is no, they don't. So then the reality is, who do they trust? People trust people, don't they?
They do.
So imagine if you're the face of your business, right? Or something else that you want to do in your life. You want to philanthropy, you want to write a book, you want to do whatever. Yeah. People will trust you because they're getting to see you, just like we're doing today. We're having an honest, authentic conversation about business and business growth. Well, you can't interpret my words because they're what they are.
Right.
Imagine if you become the human face of your business. The growth opportunities are help you with recruiting, help you with employee engagement. You want to raise capital. You want to get that next business to look at buying you. Think about it. And also sales, because they ascribe when they see you what the business is all about. So that's what we do, is we help people figure out the strategy to tell the stories that allow that to come true.
I like the way you said that, and I totally agree with you. Help me understand though, because I talk to founders every day, and I love meeting with other business owners and CEOs. It doesn't have to be the founders; it could be any level executive, really. And so many of them discount the value that they have brought to their company. And so many of them feel like, who's going to want to listen to me? Who wants to know who I am? How do you respond to that?
It's the biggest question we get, is that who will listen to me? And the best thing I can tell them is, what you think is normal is fascinating to somebody else.
Right.
Why? Dr. Seuss said it best. Only you are you, right? And you're the only human. Think about this. You're the only human being on the planet with your experience and your experiences. The only one. So it doesn't matter if I can say, well, I've run an IT security company that was NASDAQ listed. There are other people that have done that,
right?
Not in the experience that I had to get there and to leave that. So those stories are really what business is all about, because you can learn, all the spreadsheets, all the tactics in MBA and leadership school, all that.
Right.
But until you apply it into a real world case study, it doesn't mean anything. And so that's why our job is to extract those stories,
right,
and help them storytell so that people can learn and grow from them. And that's what we do.
You're so right. And to those listening, this conversation is exactly what I'm doing. It's exactly what Alan's doing. What we're talking about is showing people that you are credible. And if you are credible as a leader in your organization, you also provide a good service to them. And somehow that connects a dot. And trust me, it really does, doesn't it, Alan? I mean, it could be writing a book. It could be podcasting. It could be just speaking on stages. Oh, what do you see?
Well, I mean, think about this. We've heard of now, B2B, B2C, B2B2C. Well, now it's H to H, right? It's human to human, right? And think about this, with all the stuff that's happening with AI, right? How do you know that something's not a deep fake? Everything's a deep fake. What they write, everything's a deep fake. So you're
Right.
seeing me today. I'm Alan. You go to my LinkedIn. Oh, that's Alan. You go to my Facebook. Oh, that's Alan. Legitimacy, consistency, and humanity, I would say. So if I'm saying something, you
Yeah.
go, I like that dude, or I don't like that dude. I don't like the
Right.
dude. That's okay too. But you'll at least understand that your humanity and your authenticity will come true as long as you're authentic. And the key is never sell.
Right.
Personal branding is not marketing, right?
Right.
I'm going to teach you what I know. I'm going to story tell so that you can benefit from it, and I'm serving you. If you like that, you might look me up, but I'm not going to have a link at the bottom of my thing saying buy my stuff. That
I love
doesn't
it.
work. That's not personal.
I love it. I love it. You're hitting a wonderful nail that I think everyone should be thinking about is, I've got this great company. I'm leading a great team. Nobody else knows it. and and I think the more you think about that and the more you think about what impact would it have if people did know this is what I did and this is how I do and this is how I lead. How many people does it take, Alan, to see an interview or to see a post or to see something that you've said show up in front of somebody that could be a potential client? How many times does that need to happen and have it convert to business?
Well, it happens all the time. It happens
Yeah.
all the time to me. And so what I do is I do video. Here's an interesting thing that hopefully you'll enjoy. I do videos on leadership. I
Right.
don't sell leadership services. I can't make a penny off that, but
Yeah.
I'm highly passionate about it. I'm also known for it. But what happens is people check it out and go, okay, I like this guy. What else does he do?
Yeah.
And then they check it out and they say, oh, it's personal branding. Oh, tell me more about that. I said, well, you see what I'm doing there? That's what I'll teach you to do. Boom, instant connection. The credibility was built on something I'm passionate about and I
Totally.
have experience in, ergo, and that's how the dots get connected. It
Right.
may have absolutely nothing to do with your business, but
Right.
it's you that lead the business, and that's the connection.
Now, you're no stranger to business leadership. Give us a little background. I know you're involved in YPO. I know you're involved in other companies that you've helped grow and scale. Give us a little backstory because I think a lot of people need to know, how is Alan going to teach me how to be an influential leader in my company or in my community, I guess you could say, if we don't know what he's done. What's your story?
Well, it started with a paper route, believe it or not, as it does with a lot of people, right? Way, way, way
Me
back
too.
in Montreal,
Totally.
freezing cold. Yeah. So, but all kidding aside, those are kind of formative because you're 11 years old, right? You're
Right.
doing stuff. So I started way back then, but my formative business stuff, I grew up on the sales side of the house. I started in
Okay.
retail at a major like a Macy's and spent 9 years during school and doing all that stuff. But then I got into business equipment sales, which was like Xerox, but it was Canon, and I
Gotcha.
learned the way to sell up and down the street.
Right.
Literally, it was vacuum cleaner salesman kind of deal, knocking on
Totally.
doors, all that stuff. But what that teaches you is tools we have today and the tools I didn't have yesterday, how to deal with fear, how to deal with rejection, all those crazy things that nobody
Right.
really talks about are real when you're in sales.
Right.
But then I grew my way in through that. So I'd spent 16 years in management at Canon and then Icon offices, and then got my first CEO job back in Quebec, where
Right.
I'm originally from. And it was a turnaround, and we had to turn around a really tough business. 30 million in revenue, 8 million in losses, flipped it around, turned it around, got it back where it needed to go, all with people. I mean, you always ask, what are the key things?
Right.
It's about trust, about people. Strategies
Right.
take care of themselves. If your people can trust you, they'll work well for you. And that's what we did in that place. And then I moved to a NASDAQ listed company, which was, I discovered an Enron. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember
Oh yeah.
Enron?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I discovered one, and that was not pretty. But what we did is we turned the business around, and that was a good positive story. And then I went off and joined one of the businesses I sold off, and we grew the business from just under half a mil to 8 million in 3 years, and that was a nice
Love it.
growth story. And then I became an entrepreneur. So I've been in corporate Canada, and then a Nasdaq listed company, and then started with my business partner Leanne, our marketing agency called Infinity Communications, and we've had an 18-year entrepreneurial journey, and we've gone through, as marketing has changed and
Oh
will
yeah.
change dramatically again in some really significant way with AI. And that's been an amazing journey working with startups to billion-dollar companies through our journey. And now we're doing Strata Originals personal branding, and I've never been more charged up with
Isn't it
helping
so
tell the world
fun?
story.
It
So
truly
cool.
is so fun. I think that as people, really trying to evaluate their positioning in the market, it is about trust. It is about knowing who you're working with. And I think the H to H that you brought up earlier is such a huge factor. I mean, human to human interaction in any business setting is going to trump AI every single time, I think.
Well, it has to, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, with all the stuff we learned about selling techniques and all this, it all comes back to, do I want to spend time with you?
Yeah.
Do I trust what's coming out of your mouth?
Right.
Well, now you get to do that at scale. That's the
Right.
difference. I
Right.
get to do that at scale, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people, that over time, if you're and the key is, don't start and stop. I'm starting on my LinkedIn. I post once a week and
Right.
then I stop for 4 months. Whatever you do, do it consistently. Things will start to happen that you can't even dream of.
I love it.
So absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we know who you are, what you do, who you help. Talk to us about your business. I mean, 18 years in the making. Any business that survives 10 years, in my opinion, is amazing. 18-year journey, though. Tell us about that. What are some highlights along your own growth journey in your own organization?
Well, we started out two of us, right? And
Right.
myself and my business partner, and the idea was really simple. We left our IT security business. She said to me, "What are we going to do now?" And I said, "What do you mean we? I'm going to get a job as a CEO. We'll be friends for life." And I said, "He says, well, why don't we start a business?" I said, "Well, what would we do?" That was the conversation, Todd. I'm not joking. And she says, "Well, you're a marketing executive or a YPO, and I'm a PR expert. Why don't we start an agency?"
Right.
I said, "Oh, well, why don't we start an agency?" And that was it. So
That's like the
literally,
typical agency startup story, I think. It's like people just fall into agencies.
we fell into it, and we've adjusted. And the thing that I will say the success journey it's an entrepreneurial journey of up and down. I mean, the reality, all of us know who are true entrepreneurs, that it is not a linear path to success. But you need
Yeah.
to be, as to use a hockey analogy that most of you will know, you got to go where the puck is going to be, right? Wayne Gretzky said that.
Right.
So in marketing, we
Right.
saw that with social media. I saw PR diving, and I saw social coming, and I said, "Leanne, you focus on PR. I'm going to focus on this social stuff." And we started to make money on that before we knew what we were actually doing, because people were
Love
also
it.
going, "What do I do?" And we're kind of in that
Yeah.
world with personal branding today, because it's the same thing. I think I know what it is, but I really don't know how to execute on it. So we're in that early stage. Well, no, we'll
Yeah.
do that for you. You go be a
Yeah.
CEO. We'll figure that out. And so the journey was one of,
Yeah.
I think, change and resilience, and incredible highs and incredible lows, and award-winning stuff that we did, and then recognizing that with what's coming, we need to find some white space. And this personal branding
Right.
thing is really white space that we could own. We think we can own it globally. We really do, because
Awesome.
we're first to market with it. And so that's what we're doing. So that was the journey at Infinity.
Just a few seconds to let you know about a project that we've been putting together for the last several months, and we're finally launching it, called the Captain's Council. You see, as a CEO or operator of a business, it can feel like you get stuck in your own head a lot of the time. You get challenges that you don't know how to resolve. You get people causing problems in your leadership team that you don't know how to resolve. And it's so hard to overcome those things by yourself. You don't have to anymore. Join the Captain's Council. Captain's Council is a group of other CEOs and operators and owners of businesses where we come together once a month for several hours to discuss the biggest challenges you're facing. You express to the council of 8 to 10 people about what's going on. Where do you feel stuck? And these other people are in the same boat as you. They're running and operating their own businesses. They're your peers. They help you kind of dissect what's happening and help you see things that you may not have seen all by yourself. If you don't have a good, strong network of people around you, come join the Captain's Council. This is going to be something that will change the way you run your business and open your eyes to opportunities that you have never seen without the help of your peer group. Come check it out, captainscouncil.com. I love it. I love it. That's a very cool journey. And honestly, for those listening, what he just described is a never-ending process, right? I mean, as you're growing and building your business, sometimes it's just going back to the things that were working for you, enhancing that process, and really building your company's brand, to your point, your personal brand, identifying what you want people to recognize you for, and then getting it out there. Would you say?
I would say 100%. And the getting it out there is a really interesting thing, because as people we do marketing, but we're the worst at it, right? Because we market for other people. We don't do our own.
Right.
The thing I love about
it's a plumber with a leaky faucet.
It's really sad, because you know what to do. You got to just make investments.
Right.
But so now we've figured out that we can do this pretty easily with the personal branding thing, because we figured some stuff out to make it more efficient. And that is so much better than the marketing of the business, because now I'm competing with 5,000 agencies in North America versus one Alan McLaren. There's only one. There's only one Todd Westra.
Right.
So I have my circle, and then I'm trying to build out that circle of influence that keeps happening that will ascribe good to my business. So that's why I think it doesn't mean you don't market your business. You do, with all the things that know, growth hacking and all that stuff. Do that. That's important. And then add this. Then you're going to have the magic.
Totally.
Yeah.
I really believe, Alan, and you've probably seen this as well, that the vast majority of executives in the marketplace spend, I would say there's less than 1% that actually spend time trying to build their personal brand and identify themselves as a thought leader in their space. Is that accurate? I mean, I don't know the statistic, but you probably know better than I do.
If it's even 1%, because the creators might be 1% on average, right? When you look at the vast majority of what's up on LinkedIn, and who the voyeurs are, and who the creators are, and who all of those, right?
Right.
So what I look at and say, well, a lot of people, I get these things. I'm a private person. I don't want to get out there. I said, look, I have to respect that. And they're typically a little older, right? Like, I didn't grow up with social media. I didn't have internet when I was growing up in my world, right? So I've learned it and adopted it. And now I'm going to become an expert in AI because it's important to my business. So you start thinking about that and say, okay, listen, you're not going to be there. But once they cross that fear line, that imposter syndrome line, which a lot of CEOs unfortunately have, there's growth on the other side of that. And they kind of wake up and go, this isn't so bad. So we break down the fear with them. We teach them how to storytell. And there's no fear when you're telling a story you only own. I can only tell the infinity story. Leanne would tell her perspective on the infinity story, but she would own it. And her perspective would be different than mine. Same things, how we view it is different. So imagine when you learn that, you're now learning a new skill as a CEO, which is the skill of storytelling, which is the way you communicate today. Content and storytelling, everything else is garbage, right? It's all garbage. And you do that through email, you do that through blogging, you do it through videos, you do it through whatever.
Right.
That's what the skill is to learn. So we teach that as well.
Well, and I think that the art of storytelling is marketing in general. You've got to have a plot that revolves around some kind of a pain. And then when people hear about how you resolve the pain, it's like, whoa, I got to have that, and same thing with your personal brand. You take a person who, woe is me, has no exposure to the public eye, and you help them become presentable and become not just presentable, but thriving, talking about what you've learned as a business owner or as an executive. Very cool stuff.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the challenges. What are the big challenges that you hit as not only in your business, but as you're helping other people kind of overcome this, imposter syndrome or what have you? What do you see as the most common thing you're helping people resolve?
Well, I didn't realize we'd become counselors as part of the exercise, but we have become, and I mean that.
Awesome.
I mean that in the nicest way, because what's really cool is we're wonderfully close to our clients, arguably friends. And so, but
Right.
what we do is we're getting them out into a comfort zone, right? They might be comfortable standing in front of a crowd of 500. Talking to a camera like
Right.
this is not always easy, so you can come across authentic. And so
Right.
there's a fear of that, but there's also the fear of what are people going to say when I'm out there? Because now you're out there.
Yeah.
You're out there at scale. So
Yeah.
that's the inherent fear that we have to help break down. And then we do it,
Yep.
and we do it many, many times. So that's the first challenge, is doing that. The challenge before that is getting CEOs to understand, they say, I know I need to do this, but now I need to make the
Yeah.
leap before I have the fear. There's a leap before they
Right.
have the fear. So there's a few elements of our
I
process
agree.
that we're building in that are going to soften that blow. The challenge
Yeah.
for us in scaling the business is actually simple. The operational side is easy. You can outsource this. We can do that. There's lots of things we can do. Technology, AI.
Easy to you. Yeah,
Well.
easy to you. Not easy to a lot of guys, but yes.
Let me. I think you're right. Let me rephrase it. Conceptually easy to do. And
Yeah.
I already have
Right.
plans on how we're going to scale the operation side.
Right.
The issue for us is back to the first problem, is that, right now, Leanne and I have built a lot of trust with our clients and our prospects. That's hard to push off to somebody else. So we'd have to start building people with our values and our experience. And, the gray hair helps a bit, right? Because we've
Yes.
been leaders. We are leaders. As one guy said to us, his first line, I'm looking at 4 personal branding agencies before I talk to you. I said, no, please go ahead and do it. 20 minutes later, he said, I see why I need to work with you guys, because you know how to talk to CEOs. What we say to them is, it's not about the posting on LinkedIn and hashtags and tagging.
Right.
That anybody can do. You can do.
Right.
It's how
Right.
do we get you ready to feel comfortable to do that? And what are the right stories to tell? That's the magic.
Agreed.
And that's harder to do. Some people are natural at it, and others need a little bit of help. So that's the hardest part for us to scale. But we can get to 100 CEOs based on the 2 of us. Well, our objectives are to get 1,000 CEOs. So we're going to have to find 5 more like us at some point.
Well, you can do it as long as your process is in place, right? That's the easy part.
That's easy.
I think you can do it, and I think it's growth and scaling is just about exactly what you're talking about. Okay, how do I replicate myself? How do I get 5 more people just like me?
Yeah,
that is growth and scaling, and you're facing the pains that you've been coaching other people through right now. You got to take a look in the mirror, rewatch this podcast, and think, all right, what are the things about me that build the trust, right? And now you can easily replicate that.
Yeah, that's the goal. So that's the challenge, and that's the goal, and it's solvable for sure. But it's what we're dealing with.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Now you've been doing this for 18 years, and you've been also dealing with in your YPO experience a lot of other founders and a lot of other people. As a chairman of these peer network groups, a lot of people don't know what these things are. How has this changed your dynamic of how you, first of all, explain what it is, and tell us how it's changed your view on how to help other founders resolve their issues?
Well, hopefully it's another podcast, but I'll try to be succinct. Let me work backwards.
Be succinct,
as Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. It changed my life. So let me just leave it there. Literally changed my life. And why did it change my life? It's because as a peer support organization, the CEO is a lonely job. I don't care if you're running a 3-person business or a $1 billion business.
So
it's very
lonely
because sometimes you can't talk to your partner about the things that are going on because it might impact your finances, and so that's a challenge. Can't talk to your friends because then they're saying, "Whoa, he's not as smart as I thought he was," and right. But when you get amongst peers,
definitely can't talk to your executives
because you could want to fire them. So now you're back to the lonely job.
Exactly.
Well, when you have other founders that are like you,
right,
then they're going through it. So there's all the baloney and the masks are taken off. And you're saying, now let's tell the real story. And how do we help you through that? That's what peer organizations do. As long as you have a culture that matters.
Right.
In YPO, we talk about nothing scales better than the trust that we have with each other. I can talk to YPO right now, and we'll go what we call really deep. We can go into conversations that I could never get to with other people because there's trust there. So it
I
is
get it.
so powerful.
Yeah.
And the lessons I learned were there is nothing more difficult than leading peers. Nothing. Because you can't literally tell them, I can tell anybody on my team, you're going to do that because I said you're going to do that. I'm telling you, volunteer.
Right.
I
Right.
have to
Right.
encourage you. I have to lead you. I have to get you involved. I have to get your feedback. All the tenets of great service leadership. You
Right.
learn that in YPO. When you dive in, you're a volunteer. And I was a volunteer for almost, well, I'm still a volunteer because that is part of the culture. It's how you get the most out of the organization. So
Right.
incredible. I love it.
I
I
love
love the
it.
organization. I love the people in it. And it's helped me grow as a human.
You know, I think that for those that have never explored peer networks, it's so much better than a lunch meeting with a couple buddies. So much better than just one specific mentor. And I would argue that the cost for participation is so much more valuable than hiring an
Yeah.
advisory board. You know, I mean, they're peers. They're not just some guy who's a specialist and can help you with X, Y, or Z. These are people dealing with the same challenges you are. So I don't want to spend too much time going over that, but I will say, I will ask, how has that changed your perspective as a founder and as an operator of your own business by
I'm
having
not
that
alone.
network?
Somebody
I love it.
somewhere
Oh,
has done something that I want to
that's
do.
perfect.
End of story. I recruited an incredible female member, incredibly successful already, and she asked me, "Well, why would I do this?" And I said,
Yeah.
"What are your goals?" She shared her goals. I said, "There's 10,000 members have already done that. Already done it. They'll map it out for you. They'll tell you what to do, when to do, how to do it, where to hire." Well, where do you get that without spending hundreds of
Right.
thousands in consulting? You don't. So,
Yeah.
I have a story which we'll talk about a little bit later, but about one of my best friends who is a coach. He says, "Can I spend 20 minutes with you?" He did, and he gave me one nugget, and I went, "What a dummy I am! I missed it." And I help people every day, but I couldn't see, as my good friend Mike Maddox always says,
Right.
you can't see the label from inside the jar. Can't see the label from inside the jar.
Right.
So you need
Right.
people you trust. That's peers. You trust their
Right.
credibility and experience, but they can help you with your blind spots, which you really can't see. That's why they're blind spots. So that's why it changed my
Alan,
perspective.
I love that. And thanks for sharing that. And I appreciate your business. I appreciate what you're doing for others. For those listening, if you have not thought about what your personal brand strategy is, you've got to be thinking about it, and you've got to reach out to Alan or someone like Alan. Reach out to him. Just, I know that you're willing to respond to probably any
100%.
questions, right?
Because our mission,
Comments below.
we have a mission just that's very important to get in quickly. Our mission is to inspire leaders to get out there and tell their stories so it makes the world a better place. That's our mission. Whether you work with it or not is secondary. Let's all get out there and share and make LinkedIn a really cool engagement place, not a selling place.
Love it.
That would be the coolest thing we could do.
Love it. And who in your life, who in your circle has been that mentor or that inspiration for you to kind of keep you going and doing what you're doing?
Well, honestly, I don't need a lot of mentors in my life. I'm very driven by. However,
yeah,
and I'm not one who asks for help very easily. Just to be completely frank, but I have a lot of loving friends who hit me on the head with sledgehammers and help me. And I had one who was a professional coach that I shared our plan with him, and he said, "Alan, don't major in the minors. You're doing so many things. What's the one thing that drives the most activity?" One. And I said, "This thing that I'm doing 3 times. Can you do it 5 times?" I guess I can. And that one little piece of advice, it's not about prioritization. It's about a linear path to success. He saw it. I'm doing it. So I'm going, no, I'm doing it. But I wasn't doing enough of it because it was the one thing versus the others were not as successful. So his name is Gord Forsyth. Love him like a brother. And that little piece of advice I will never forget.
Awesome shout out. Awesome shout out. Awesome interview. Alan, I'm going to post all your social media in the show notes and where people can connect with you. Any last parting words to our audience?
A quote from Steve Jobs. How's that? Our job
Let's hear it.
is to make a dent in the universe. That's it. Go make a dent.
Love it. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Alan. We appreciate you, your business, and I hope that people listening are going to come flocking, because everybody out there needs to be focusing on their brand. They need to be focusing on getting themselves out there, not only for your business, but for your own sanity. What's your next play? After you exit, where are you going next? Who do you want to partner with? Who do you want to collaborate with? You don't get those invites unless you're known. So be out there, be the best you can be. And we can't wait to see you on the next episode. But Alan, thank you for being here.
My pleasure, Todd. Thanks for reaching out.
Hey, what did you think of that interview? I let it go a little longer because you know what? There was just too much value in there. I absolutely loved the interview. I love the interviewed person. The guest we had on today was amazing. And I think that you'll learn a lot by following him and his content on social media where he's present and active. There's so much that can be done, and trust me, there is never anyone doing all that they can do to continue to build and grow their brand and build and grow your network of peers. That's right. Building a peer network is absolutely critical. If you don't want to build your own, come be part of one. You know, we have a peer network called the Captain's Council. We'll put some details in the comments below, but I have absolutely found so much joy in talking to other founders about their challenges and helping find solutions for other people who are just like me, who are trying to run a business and manage employees and manage payroll and finances and product and ordering, and all those things are so challenging and so taxing to handle all by yourself. You don't need to be by yourself. And as we talked about in the show today, there are many networks you can be a part of. Ours is just one of many. You don't have to join mine. But I'm telling you, learning from peers and expressing your pains and your struggles with someone who understands them is therapeutic, and it will relieve your stress levels from here down into this range where you can start thinking, solving, and finding solutions. I appreciate you being here on the Growth and Scaling Podcast. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. We love, love, love growing our audience, and we love our audience who's with us. We appreciate your support. We hope you're finding value from these interviews. Let us know in the comments if you'd like to hear from someone specifically, and let us know if we're bringing you the value that you're hoping to get out of this podcast. Thanks so much for being a part of our community, and we look forward to catching up with you on the next episode.